Let's start the book. Make your bed. Introduction. Changing the world starts with your bed. Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed by the unrelenting chaos of daily life? Admiral William H. McRaven's incredible book, Make Your Bed, offers a surprisingly simple and profound antidote to that modern paralysis. Based on his legendary Navy SEAL training experiences, this book proves that massive global impact actually begins with the smallest, most mundane morning habits. This is not just another typical productivity manual, but rather a profound blueprint for building unshakable mental toughness and emotional resilience. By mastering tiny daily disciplines, you systematically build the internal fortitude needed to face life's absolute darkest moments. If you truly want to change your life and perhaps even the world, the very first step is right in front of you. Let us explore how the simple act of making your bed can completely transform your destiny. Point 1. Little things build unshakable momentum. Why do we so often overlook the simplest tasks when we are trying to achieve massive goals? The journey to greatness does not begin with a monumental leap, but rather with a seemingly insignificant step, taken the moment your feet hit the floor in the morning. In the grueling world of basic underwater demolition slash SEALBUD S training, the instructors demand absolute perfection in the most mundane areas of life. Every single morning, the instructors meticulously inspect the recruits' beds. The corners must be tucked perfectly at a 45-degree angle, the blanket pulled tight enough to bounce a quarter, and the pillow perfectly centered. It seems incredibly trivial, almost ridiculous, especially for soldiers who are training to fight in the most dangerous combat zones on the planet. Why would elite warriors care about hospital corners on a mattress? But Admiral McRaven quickly learned the profound psychological secret behind this daily ritual. If you make your bed every morning, you have successfully accomplished the first task of the day. It gives you a small sense of pride, and it encourages you to do another task and another and another. Have you ever noticed how a chaotic morning often leads to a chaotic afternoon? When you rush out the door, leaving dirty dishes in the sink and a crumpled mess of blankets on your bed, you carry that disorganized energy with you into your workplace. Your mind feels cluttered because your environment is cluttered. However, taking just 2 minutes to smooth out the sheets and arrange the pillows creates a profound shift in your mindset. You are essentially telling your brain that order matters, that details matter, and that you are in control of your immediate environment. Small actions create powerful psychological anchors. By completing this one minor task, you trigger a cascade of positive momentum that carries you through the rest of the day. Let us look at how this applies to our everyday civilian lives. When you are facing a massive project at work, a daunting financial crisis, or a complex personal goal like writing a book or getting out of debt, the sheer scale of the challenge can easily paralyze you. You might look at the mountain in front of you and think it is impossible to climb. But what if you stop looking at the peak and just focus on the first rock? Making your bed is the ultimate symbol of breaking down monumental challenges into manageable daily victories. It teaches us that the little things in life matter. If you cannot do the little things right, you will never be able to do the big things right. Furthermore, life is inherently unpredictable and often deeply challenging. There will inevitably be days when absolutely everything goes wrong. You might fail a presentation, receive terrible news about a loved one, or simply feel crushed by the weight of your responsibilities. On those miserable days when you return home physically exhausted and emotionally drained, you will walk into your bedroom and see a bed that is made. You will see a bed that you made. That simple visual cue provides a profound sense of comfort and a quiet reassurance that tomorrow will be better. It is a silent reminder that you still have agency in a chaotic world. To truly harness this power, you must approach the task with intention. It is not just about throwing the covers over the mattress, it is about doing the job right. Embrace the discipline. Treat the first moments of your day as sacred. Do not reach for your phone to scroll through negative news. Reach for your blankets and create order. Acknowledge the victory. Pause for just 1 second to look at the completed bed. Let that tiny hit of dopamine register in your brain. You have already won the first battle of the day. Carry the standard forward. Let the attention to detail you apply to your bed bleed into how you dress, how you speak to your family, and how you tackle your first work email. We often spend our lives waiting for a massive life-changing event to propel us forward, completely ignoring the fact that our character is actually built in the quiet, unseen moments of our daily routines. The discipline required to tidy your sleeping quarters is the exact same discipline required to lead a team through a corporate crisis, to hold your family together during a tragedy, or to push your body across the finish line of a marathon. Everything is connected. When you respect the small things, you prepare yourself to conquer the massive things. So tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, stand up, turn around, and make your bed. Point 2. Find someone to help you paddle. Who do you turn to when the waves of life become too high to navigate on your own? The myth of the entirely self-made individual is one of the most dangerous illusions we can believe, because true survival and success always require a dedicated team. During Bud-S training, the recruits are divided into boat crews. Each crew consists of 7 men who are responsible for carrying a 10-foot rubber raft everywhere they go. They carry it on their heads while running through the soft sand, and they paddle it through the freezing, churning surf of the Pacific Ocean. Admiral McRaven recalls how physically impossible it was to manage this heavy, awkward boat alone. When the winter swells battered the California coast, the waves could easily flip the raft and toss the men into the unforgiving sea. The only way to punch through the crashing surf was for every single man to dig his paddle deep into the water and pull with synchronized, agonizing effort. If even one person stopped paddling, the boat would be entirely at the mercy of the ocean. The phrase, "everyone must paddle," became a matter of literal survival. We love to celebrate the solitary hero in our culture. We praise the lone genius, the solo entrepreneur, and the independent maverick who supposedly built their empire with their bare hands. But this narrative is fundamentally flawed. Nobody makes it through Bud-S alone, and absolutely nobody makes it through life alone. We all face our own terrifying surf zones. You might be dealing with a sudden medical diagnosis, the heartbreaking collapse of a marriage, or a devastating failure in your career. During these times of intense vulnerability, trying to carry the heavy rubber boat of your life completely by yourself will only lead to exhaustion and defeat. You need a crew. You need people who are willing to dig their paddles into the water when your arms are simply too tired to pull anymore. Consider the reality of building a successful career. You might be brilliant, hardworking, and innovative, but without mentors who offer guidance, colleagues who support your projects, and friends who listen to your frustrations, your potential remains severely limited. Success is a collective effort, heavily reliant on the strength and goodwill of the people around you. In the book, McRaven recounts a terrifying parachuting accident where his canopy deployed improperly, wrapping the cords around his legs and violently tearing his pelvis apart. He was completely helpless. It was during his long, painful recovery that he truly realized the value of his support system. His wife, his friends, and his colleagues stepped in to carry him when he could not take a single step. They were his boat crew in the darkest chapter of his life. How do we actively build this essential crew in our everyday lives? It requires humility and intentional effort. Drop the armor of invulnerability. You have to admit when you need help. Pretending that you are perfectly fine when you are secretly drowning prevents people from throwing you a lifeline. Be a reliable paddler for others. You cannot expect a strong crew if you are not willing to paddle for them. Check on your friends, offer support to your coworkers, and be the person who shows up when things get difficult for someone else. Diversify your boat crew. You need different types of strength. You need the friend who offers emotional comfort, the mentor who gives harsh but necessary truth, and the partner who simply sits with you in the silence. It is absolutely vital to recognize that depending on others is not a sign of weakness. It is a profound strategic advantage. When you try to do everything yourself, you are limited by your own physical and emotional endurance, which is finite. But when you bind your life to others, your capacity for resilience multiplies exponentially. If you want to change the world, you cannot steer the ship by yourself. Find people to share the burden, make deep, meaningful connections. Lean on them when you are weak, and let them lean on you when they stumble. Life is a wildly unpredictable ocean, and the only way to reach the shore safely is to paddle together. Point 3. Measure hearts, not physical flippers. What truly determines whether a person will rise to the occasion or crumble under pressure? We place far too much emphasis on external advantages like height, background, or natural talent, while completely ignoring the invisible, unstoppable force of human willpower. In SEAL training, there is a legendary group known as the Munchkin Crew. This was the boat crew composed entirely of the shortest men in the class. None of them were over 5'5". Next to the towering, muscular recruits who looked like Greek gods, the Munchkin crew appeared completely outmatched. The taller men, with their long arms and massive legs, seemed genetically engineered to dominate the grueling physical challenges. They would often tease the shorter men, joking about their tiny flippers. But a fascinating thing happened when the boat crews hit the freezing water for their long-distance swims. The Munchkin crew consistently outpaddled, outran, and outswam the bigger men. Why? Because what they lacked in physical stature, they made up for with an absolute burning desire to prove everyone wrong. They had more heart. This phenomenon is incredibly common in all walks of life, yet we continually fall into the trap of judging books by their covers. We look at a person's resume, their educational background, their physical appearance, or their financial status, and we automatically make assumptions about their potential. Have you ever felt like you were the underdog in a situation? Perhaps you were applying for a promotion against colleagues with Ivy League degrees, or trying to start a business with practically zero capital. It is incredibly easy to look at the big guys in the room and feel completely inadequate. You might think, I don't have the right connections, I don't have the right training, I simply don't have the big flippers. But Admiral McRaven's lesson forces us to completely reevaluate what actual strength looks like. Heart is the ultimate equalizer. Heart is that relentless, burning fire inside you that refuses to accept defeat. It is the grit that keeps you studying late into the night while others are sleeping. It is the resilience that makes you send out your 100th job application after receiving 99 rejections. While natural talent and privilege can certainly give someone a head start, those advantages often breed complacency. The big guys in the SEAL class relied so heavily on their muscles that they lacked the deep psychological endurance required when the pain became unbearable. The Munchkin crew, however, had spent their entire lives fighting for respect, so they knew exactly how to suffer and keep moving forward. Let us explore how you can harness the mindset of the Munchkin crew in your own life. Stop measuring yourself against others' external advantages. Your lack of resources is actually an opportunity to develop ultimate resourcefulness. Do not let imposter syndrome convince you that you do not belong in the room. Cultivate an obsession with effort. You cannot control your height, your upbringing, or your natural aptitude, but you have absolute 100% control over your effort. Outwork the competition. Use doubt as fuel. When people dismiss you or underestimate you, do not get angry. Get determined. Let their low expectations be the spark that ignites your desire to completely blow them away. History is filled with spectacular stories of ordinary, seemingly unremarkable people who achieved extraordinary things simply because they refused to quit. Consider the individuals who have overcome massive physical disabilities to climb mountains, or the people born into extreme poverty who built global charities. They were not chosen because they looked the part. They succeeded because their internal drive was larger than their external obstacles. SEAL training strips away all the superficial layers of a human being. It doesn't care about your family name, your bank account, or the size of your biceps. It only cares about how much pain you are willing to endure to reach your goal. If you want to change the world, you must realize that true greatness comes from within. Measure a person by the size of their heart and make sure your own heart is the strongest muscle in your body. Point 4. Survive being a sandy sugar cookie. How do you react when you do absolutely everything right, follow all the rules, put in maximum effort, and still end up being punished? Accepting that life is fundamentally unfair is one of the hardest yet most liberating lessons a human being can ever learn. One of the most dreaded punishments in Bud S training is becoming a sugar cookie. During the morning uniform inspections, the instructors would walk the ranks, looking for any possible flaw. Even if a recruit's uniform was perfectly starched, his brass buckle brilliantly polished, and his hat perfectly aligned, an instructor could still arbitrarily find a microscopic fault. The punishment was immediate and brutal. The recruit was ordered to run fully clothed into the freezing ocean surf, roll around in the wet sand until every inch of his body was covered, and then stand back at attention. The recruit was now a sugar cookie, forced to spend the rest of the grueling day with cold, wet sand chafing his skin during every run, every exercise, and every meal. It was miserable, but more importantly, it felt incredibly unfair. Many recruits simply could not handle this psychological torment. They would become furious, complaining that they had spent hours perfecting their uniform and that the punishment was unjust. Those were the recruits who usually quit. But the instructors were not punishing them for a bad uniform. They were teaching them a profound lesson about the nature of existence. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you will still end up a sugar cookie. You can do everything perfectly, and the world will still find a way to knock you down. Think about how often this happens in our daily lives. You might eat perfectly healthy, exercise daily, and still receive a devastating health diagnosis. You might be the hardest working employee in your company, only to be laid off because of corporate restructuring. You might pour your entire heart and soul into a relationship, only to have the other person walk away. When these moments hit, our natural human instinct is to cry out against the injustice of it all. We scream, "It's not fair! I didn't deserve this!" We wallow in self-pity, feeling like victims of a cruel universe. But Admiral McRaven warns us that complaining about the unfairness of life is a complete waste of energy. The sand is going to chafe, the cold is going to bite, and the unfairness is going to sting. How you respond to that sting dictates the entire trajectory of your life. Let go of entitlement. The universe does not owe you a reward just because you worked hard. Erasing the expectation of fairness allows you to absorb blows without losing your mind. Do not waste energy complaining. Every ounce of energy you spend complaining about how unfair a situation is an ounce of energy stolen from finding a solution. Keep moving forward in the sand. When you get turned into a sugar cookie, accept the discomfort. Stand tall, shake off what you can, and boldly step into the next challenge of the day. The people who truly change the world are not those who have enjoyed a smooth, fair ride to the top. They are the people who have been covered in sand, unfairly beaten down, and deeply misunderstood, yet they refuse to let the bitterness poison their hearts. Nelson Mandela spent decades in prison unfairly, yet he emerged to lead a nation with grace. It is easy to be a good person and a hard worker when everything is going your way and you are being rewarded for your efforts. The true test of your character is how you behave when you do everything right and still get punished. When life arbitrarily throws you into the freezing surf and covers you in sand, do not complain. Do not blame the instructors of life. Just smile, accept the grit, and keep marching forward. Point 5. Slide down the obstacle head first. Are you standing at the edge of a massive opportunity, safely holding onto the ropes, but too terrified to let go and take the plunge? True progress always requires us to abandon our comfortable safety nets and take calculated, terrifying risks. Every week during SEAL training, the recruits are required to run a grueling physical obstacle course. The most intimidating obstacle on the course is the slide for life. It consists of a 3-level tower, 100 feet tall, with a long nylon rope stretching from the top of the tower down to the ground. The traditional, safe way to navigate this obstacle is to hang underneath the rope, inching your way down hand over hand. It is slow, agonizingly painful, but relatively safe from falling. For years, the obstacle course record had remained unbroken because everyone used this safe method. But one day, a recruit decided to completely ignore the conventional wisdom. Instead of hanging underneath, he climbed on top of the rope, positioned himself head first, and slid down at a terrifying speed. It was highly dangerous. One slip meant plunging to the ground below. But he took the risk, and he absolutely shattered the course record. This story perfectly illustrates a fundamental truth about human achievement. You will never achieve greatness if you are constantly paralyzed by the fear of failure. We are biologically wired to seek comfort and avoid danger. When faced with a new challenge, our brains scream at us to take the safe route, to hang underneath the rope where we feel secure. We stay in mediocre jobs because the steady paycheck feels safe. We stay in unfulfilling relationships because being alone feels too risky. We never start that business, write that book, or move to that new city because the possibility of falling completely terrifies us. However, playing it perpetually safe is actually the most dangerous risk of all because it guarantees a life of regret and unfulfilled potential. Admiral McRaven emphasizes that taking risks does not mean being reckless or foolish. The SEAL who went headfirst down the rope didn't do it blindly. He understood the mechanics, he trusted his grip, and he made a calculated decision to push past his fear. He recognized that to achieve an extraordinary result, he had to employ an extraordinary method. How can we start taking more calculated risks in our everyday lives? Identify your personal slide for life. What is the one thing you know you need to do, but you are absolutely terrified to attempt? Name the fear, acknowledging it is the first step to conquering it. Analyze the worst-case scenario. Often, our fears are wildly exaggerated by our imagination. If you take the risk and fail, will it truly destroy you, or will it just be a temporary setback? Most falls are survivable. Change your posture. Stop hanging underneath your challenges defensively. Climb on top of them. Attack your goals with a proactive, aggressive, head-first mentality. Think about the moments in your life that you are most proud of. Did they occur while you were sitting comfortably on the couch? Or did they happen after you took a leap of faith into the unknown? Life is incredibly short, and the window of opportunity to truly push your limits does not stay open forever. You will face many ropes in your life. You can choose to inch your way down carefully, constantly looking at the ground in fear, and you will eventually reach the bottom safely with everyone else. Or you can summon your courage, climb on top of the rope, and slide down head first. You might get some rope burn, and you might experience a few terrifying moments of instability. But the exhilarating thrill of breaking your own records and achieving your true potential is worth every single risk. Point 6. Face the sharks in dark waters. How do you react when you are entirely out of your element, surrounded by darkness, and suddenly confronted by a terrifying threat? True courage is not the absence of fear, but the conscious decision to stand your ground when every instinct begs you to swim away. One of the most anxiety-inducing phases of SEAL training takes place in the dark, freezing waters off the coast of San Clemente Island. The recruits are required to conduct long-distance night swims. The waters around the island are notorious for being a major breeding ground for great white sharks. Before the recruits enter the ocean, the instructors happily brief them on all the different species of sharks that inhabit the area. They assure the recruits that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least, not recently. But the instructors also teach them a critical survival tactic. If a shark begins to circle you, do not panic. Do not splash around to swim away because that triggers the shark's predatory instinct. Instead, you must stand your ground in the water. And if the shark darts toward you, you must summon all your strength and punch it directly in the snout. This terrifying scenario is a spectacular metaphor for the seemingly insurmountable fears and aggressive adversaries we must face in our lives. The world is filled with sharks. There are bullies, toxic environments, oppressive systems, and personal tragedies that circle us in the dark waters of our lives. When you are trying to achieve a goal, challenge the status quo, or simply survive a difficult period, the sharks will inevitably sense your vulnerability and begin to circle. Consider the sharks in your own life. It might be a manipulative boss who constantly undermines your confidence. It might be a toxic family member who feeds on your emotional distress. Or perhaps the shark is internal, a crippling anxiety, a deep depression, or a severe addiction that threatens to swallow you whole. When these sharks approach, our natural response is intense panic. We want to thrash around, retreat, and frantically swim back to the safety of the beach. We often try to appease bullies, hoping that if we just make ourselves small and unnoticeable, they will leave us alone. But Admiral McRaven's lesson is unequivocally clear. You cannot outswim the sharks of life, and you certainly cannot negotiate with them. If you show weakness, they will strike. Hold your position. When intimidation tactics are used against you, do not back down. Maintain your composure. Your calm presence in the face of aggression is incredibly disarming to a bully. Look the fear in the eye. Do not avert your gaze from the problem. Whether it is crushing debt or a difficult conversation you have been avoiding, face it directly. Deliver the punch. When the confrontation is unavoidable, you must strike back with absolute authority. Set firm boundaries. Speak your truth loudly. Take decisive action against the things that threaten your well-being. Courage is a muscle that must be actively developed. The first time you stand up to a bully, or the first time you confront a deep-seated fear, your heart will pound and your hands will shake. You will feel terrified. But the moment you land that metaphorical punch on the shark's snout, something miraculous happens. The fear loses its grip on you. The shark realizes you are not an easy victim and it swims away. If you want to change the world, you cannot be paralyzed by the predators that lurk in the dark. You must learn to swim boldly into the deep water, fully aware of the dangers and absolutely prepared to fight back when the sharks inevitably close in. Point 7. Sing loudly when up to your neck. Where do we find the strength to endure when the pain is overwhelming and the situation seems utterly hopeless? The most powerful weapon a human being possesses is not physical strength or tactical brilliance, but the contagious, indestructible power of hope. The defining crucible of Bud S is Hell Week, a grueling 5.5-day stretch of continuous physical and mental torment with virtually no sleep. The absolute lowest point of Hell Week occurs at the mud flats. The recruits are ordered to paddle into a freezing, swampy expanse of mud, where they are told to immerse themselves until only their heads are visible. The cold is agonizing. It chills the bone marrow and clouds the mind. As the sun drops and the freezing wind begins to howl, the instructors offer a tempting deal. If just 5 men quit, the rest of the class can get out of the freezing mud and sit by a warm fire. The temptation to quit is overwhelming. Men are shivering uncontrollably, their teeth chattering, their spirits entirely broken. Just as the first man is about to give up and ruin it for everyone, a single voice rises above the howling wind. One recruit begins to sing. He is completely out of tune and his voice is shaking from the cold, but he sings with absolute enthusiasm. The instructors furiously yell at him to stop, threatening more punishment, but the song continues. Then a second voice joins in, then a third. Soon, the entire class is singing loudly together. The instructors threaten them, but the singing only grows louder. And miraculously, the mud suddenly feels a little less cold. The wind seems a little less piercing. The singing doesn't change the physical reality of the mud flats, but it completely changes the psychological reality of the men. It gives them hope. In our lives, we will all inevitably find ourselves stuck in the absolute darkest, coldest mud. Tragedy, grief, massive failure, and despair are unavoidable human experiences. You might lose someone you love dearly, watch your life's work collapse, or face a global crisis that strips away your security. When you are up to your neck in the cold mud of life, the darkness can easily convince you that the pain will never end and that the only logical option is to simply give up. But it is precisely in these moments of utter darkness that you must find a way to sing. Be the first voice. Do not wait for someone else to lift your spirits. Even when you are terrified and freezing, force yourself to find one small sliver of positivity. Your courage to sing will inspire others who are secretly desperate for a lifeline. The power of collective hope. Misery loves company, but hope is highly contagious. When you share your resilience with others, you create a unified front that can withstand unimaginable pressure. Defy the instructors of despair. Life will scream at you to stop hoping. The cynics and the pessimists will tell you that things will never get better. Sing louder. Your optimism is the ultimate rebellion against a cruel world. One single person has the profound ability to change the entire atmosphere of a room, a company, or a family. Think of the leaders in history who guided their people through the darkest wars and depressions. They did not do it by presenting bleak statistics. They did it by offering a vision of a better tomorrow. Hope is not a passive, naive emotion. It is an active, fierce, and incredibly powerful strategy for survival. When you are suffering, when the cold wind is biting at your soul, and when quitting seems like the only sweet relief, dig deep within yourself. Lift up your voice, sing loudly, and watch how the power of hope can carry you and everyone around you through the longest, darkest night. Point 8. The conclusion. What is the ultimate secret to surviving the trials of life and leaving a lasting legacy? It is the absolute, uncompromising, and stubborn refusal to ever give up. In the precise center of the Bud S training compound hangs a shiny brass bell. It is perfectly visible to all the recruits at all times. It represents the easiest way out of the torment. If a recruit cannot handle the cold, the sand, the exhaustion, or the screaming instructors, all he has to do is walk up to that bell and ring it 3 times. Ring the bell, and you are immediately pulled out of the freezing surf. Ring the bell, and you get a hot cup of coffee, a warm shower, and a soft bed. Ring the bell, and the agonizing pain stops instantly. But ringing that bell also means you are no longer a SEAL trainee. It means you have quit. And Admiral McRaven notes that while the immediate relief of ringing the bell is incredibly sweet, the regret that follows lasts for an entire lifetime. Life constantly offers us our own brass bells. They are placed conveniently right in the middle of our most difficult struggles. When you're trying to lose weight and the hunger pangs are intense, the junk food is a bell. When you are trying to save your marriage and the arguments become exhausting, walking out the door is a bell. When you are pursuing a difficult degree and the exams seem impossible, dropping out is a bell. Quitting is always the easiest, most accessible option available to us. The world will usually understand if we quit. People will offer sympathy and say, "It's okay, it was too hard anyway." But the comfort of quitting is a terrible illusion. The pain of discipline and the pain of struggle are temporary. The cold mud washes off, the exhausted muscles eventually heal, And the difficult chapters of life eventually turn. But the pain of regret, the haunting knowledge that you gave up when you could have taken one more step, is permanent. It is a ghost that will follow you forever. Pre-commit to the struggle. Decide right now, before the pain even begins, that quitting is fundamentally not an option. If you leave the door of quitting slightly cracked open, you will inevitably walk through it when things get hard. Focus on the very next step. Do not look at the 5 miles left in the run. Just look at the next 50 feet. Survive the current hour, then the next hour. Remember why you started. When the temptation to ring the bell is overwhelming, connect deeply with your core purpose. Why are you suffering? If the why is strong enough, you can endure anyhow. If you look at the people who have truly changed the world, the innovators, the peacemakers, the great artists, and the resilient parents, they are rarely the smartest or the most talented people in the room, but they are always the ones who absolutely refuse to quit. They were knocked down repeatedly, covered in sand, forced into the freezing water, and surrounded by sharks. But they never walked over to the bell. Changing the world, or simply changing your own life, is not about grand, cinematic moments of glory. It is about waking up every single morning and making your bed. It is about finding a crew to help you paddle, respecting the power of heart over physical advantages, and accepting the unfairness of life with grace. It is about taking headfirst risks, facing down the predators in the dark, and singing with fierce hope when you are up to your neck in mud. And above all, it is about making a solemn vow to yourself that no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much you are suffering, you will never, ever ring that brass bell. Start your day with a task completed.